this basement, you can see here I built a half wall. This wall is actually going to be also the support for a bar, basically a work surface that comes out this way and wraps around in there. We're going to have a countertop built into here. So this is going to serve as a support for that. But whether or not you have a countertop or a bar, you're just building a half wall to separate your room, kind of like what might be up here all the way down. When you build a half wall, you don't have a fixing point on the top. You don't have a header plate running up to the ceiling, up to the joist that's allowing this wall to be fixed into place. So some things you might want to think about when you're building that half wall is how are you going to build this wall to be stable. Now here you can see I've got actually two sections of the half wall because I wanted some depth to this wall here to be able to support the countertop, give me a surface, but also have a clean finished surface on the back side here where we're going to have a sitting area. So on this side, you can see I built two half walls, tied them together. Now if I just built a half wall and I fixed it to the floor here, even if I was able to tie it on the other side, that half wall having one point of fixation at this floor would make that wall very unstable this way, especially if you have a counter or anything else that people might be leaning on, pushing on, whatever. Eventually that wall is going to move and rock, or potentially easily break if somebody's bumping into it. So you want to have ways that you're going to be able to solidify this half wall. Now I was very fortunate in this design. I actually have this support post coming up here through, so I could actually build around this, and I'll talk about how I boxed in on that separately. But you can see that I had to build, and I want to extend the wall beyond this half pipe, so I had to build a half wall up to the pipe, to the post. Then I had to build another small short section of a half wall over here. So now with this post separating these two walls, I've got two individual walls that also can move relative to each other. So I had to make sure these things were secure. You can see how I tied those together here. It's tied together across the top, and they're both fixed into the floor. Even so, those two walls are still able to potentially move. There's nothing holding them together up here. The counter will, but even with the counter on top, this whole wall, if I was to push this whole thing could still rock back and forth, eventually crack our drywall, come loose, or worse, eventually break free. One way to stiffen your walls when you have something like this is to run these kinds of diagonal cross members. What this does is when one wall moves, it is trying to turn that load from here down through this cross member into the floor or into wherever else it's tying off. It's going to give that wall a tremendous amount of stiffness in this way. So for example, if I try to rock my wall and they're both fixed at the bottom, and if I rock the wall this way, you can see how both of them are going to move at the same angle, but the tops have to move in different degrees. When I tie those together, it doesn't allow those to move. It basically ties those together and keeps them solid. So what I've done here is run a couple pieces in both directions, one in this direction and one in this direction. That way, either way I'm going to move this thing is really solid now and it's not going to go anywhere. So if you're building a half wall, if you're going to build a single wall like this, just to split off a room, think about what you're going to do to be able to reinforce that. When you have if you build a double half wall, and if your space can take that, and if they have a purpose, use this kind of tying together with these angular pieces. That's going to make this nice and rigid.